Hello, this online lecture is about how images construct meaning. The slides in this PowerPoint presentation were developed by Dr. Angela Thomas from the University of Tasmania, who has kindly let us use her resources, and I have adapted them. I'm Trish Weeks. Here are the books we'll be using as the basis of analysis of some of the images in this presentation. The theory in this presentation was developed by Theo van Leeuwen and Gunter Kress in a very important book called Reading Images. The book's on your reading list, and you can do yourself a favour and get yourselves a copy of this. It's quite detailed and technical, but it's absolutely wonderful. This book explains how images create three kinds of meanings: interpersonal meaning, interacting between people; textual meaning, or how a text is composed; and ideational or representational meanings, or how a text is organised. Other books that have developed Van Leeuwen and Kress's ideas include these three. You might notice that your set text, the shape of text to come, is on the right-hand side. That's a teacher's version, a simplified version of some of the other work. Reading visual narratives on the left-hand side by Painter, Martin and Unsworth, and in the middle, New Literacies compiled by Unsworth. They're very important extended reading for you. So let's talk about the three meaning systems that operate within images to make meaning. All three operate at the same time, and all three are connected to the Australian Curriculum English. The first way that images make meaning is by describing the who, what, when, where, why of the text. A text in this case being an image. Who's there, what's happening, and where are they? That's expressing and developing ideas in the Australian curriculum. The second area is interpersonal or interactive meanings, how the text makes us feel and the relationships between the images in the text and the viewer. Then there's textual or compositional meanings, how everything's been put together and organised, what's the most important part of it, how is it framed, and that's the text structure and organisation. There are two types of images. This is a system network that explains what different types or aspects of something. So there are two types of ideational images: narrative and conceptual. Narrative images, in a way, you could say they tell a story because there's something happening, and conceptual images tell you what is. We're going to look at those two different types. So here we have some narrative images from the book Wendy. In the top picture, the chicken lays an egg, but the egg is square. That's doings and happenings. It requires an action to be happening. In the image at the bottom, Wendy's doing a cartwheel. So that's also something happening. So when something's happening in an image, we see what's called a vector. So a vector is a line or implied line in an image. So the line could be a sight line, like a gaze between two characters, or it could actually be a physical line on the page. Conceptual images, in contrast, are describing what is, and they are not saying there's nothing really happening. It's usually trying to describe some kind of something that exists, or some concept or analytical symbolic representation. Now let's explore happenings. Happenings are happenings, I'm using the terminology from the textbook, The Shape of Text to Come. Happenings are action qualities, aspects of the setting, or they could be conceptual qualities. Here are some vectors. Vectors are lines. Now, in this, the cartwheeling Wendy is not, there are not actually lines on that picture, but we imagine the lines because we can imagine her cartwheeling, and in our mind we can see the shape of her wings in that, those oblique lines there. Also, the feathers twirling through the air also create an impression of lines. The two chickens leaning towards each other create like a downward arrow, and the tightrope there on the image on the bottom, that's a line. Then the direction she's walking, where she's looking. So you can see that the lines are not necessarily, you know, arrows on the page, but they're where the character is looking, or the directions of things and the shapes of things, and that helps us to get that sense of something happening. There's also looking. So there is an implied sight line between the man and the bird, and then down between the man and the whatever that is. This one has action, which is the birth of the egg, and a reaction with Wendy looking down at the egg. Also in happenings, we can use our knowledge of grammar to describe what's happening in terms of processes. So a character could be thinking, or sensing, or listening. So we can see the alligator is listening to music. And you can also have saying or singing, or doing things. So there are different kinds of happenings as well. The next aspect of meaning, a meaning system, is interacting and relating. So here are 6 different subsystems within this big system. They're in the Callow textbook. The gaze to the viewer, shot distance, angles, and colours, and authenticity and colour. Let's have a look. Contact or gaze is the person or character in the image looking directly at us. That's called a demand. If the characters are looking at each other, not at us, it's called an offer. It's an indirect gaze. Okay, could you tell me what are these 2 images? Are they demand or offer? They're demand, right? Because the characters are looking directly at us. Interpersonally, that's a really strong connection with us. That's why it's antenna. Another demand, really strong and powerful, isn't it? Because the dog is looking directly at us, and none too friendly either. Now, here's an animal not looking at us, so that's not a demand, that's offer. Because the gorilla is not looking at us, it makes us wonder what the gorilla is thinking. But gaze off to the side, we're not part of the gorilla's world as much as we were if the gorilla is looking directly at us. Here's another system, social distance. Close up, medium shot and long shot. So in this front page from My Dog, there's a close-up of the boy and the dog, and then a long shot the distance of the houses. So you can see how powerful that is. There's something close and something far. The closer something is to us as the viewer, the more intimate and personal it is, and the further away, the more distant and impersonal. Oh, by the way, a close-up is usually considered around from the torso up. Medium shot is the whole person, and long shot is far away. Here's another system of meaning, which is angle. High angle, low angle, equal angle. So when you think of this angle, imagine if this was a photograph, where would the photographer be sitting or standing in order to make this shot? So if we have a look at the middle picture of the big man in the clouds, we would have to be down on the floor looking up to take a picture of this. And if we're down and the man is up, it gives the man more power. So we are low angle. We're low and the image is high. So the image is represented as powerful, the man's powerful. The opposite, high angle, when we're looking down on something, it's literal. We are looking down on them. We're more powerful than what's being taken in the image, like the chicken on the high wire. Equal angle, which is sort of, if you imagine the camera at the same angle as what you're taking the photo of, that is equal power. Here's some high angle views. So we know more, we are more powerful than these images. And now we're equal. There's some very interesting work being done on the meaning of colours. So what kind of colour it is, vibrant or muted, warm or cool, familiar or removed. You don't need to know this in great detail. All you need to know is that there's a lot of research behind what's in Callow's book. Callow didn't invent the systems in his book. He's just drawing on systemic functional semiotics. But you can use the terms in the Callow book. You don't have to use these ones, which are from Painter. But just be aware, there's a lot of research being done into what colours mean. So let's have a look at some examples. The contrasting colours here are contrasting stages in the narrative, and the brighter colours show brighter mood, brighter, brighter emotions, happier times for the characters in the story. When it's dark and grey, the character's mood is also dark. Design and layout. Let's look at some aspects of compositional meaning of how the text is organised and arranged. Salience is what is most important, what is given most prominence. And in this case it would be red. Okay, the red headings, Wendy, the flying chicken, and the red hat, the red comb of the chicken, I mean, not a hat, and the red helmet and the little red tie. All of that's really salient, isn't it? The size, she's really big. Colour is brighter, and whether there are vectors directed. Now, even though she's got two little dot eyes, she's looking directly at us. So there's salience here as well. The character who's wearing red is still really prominent, but it's in contrast to the dark background. And in that the photograph as well, red is a really common way of building salience, showing you what's most important. Don't worry about that slide. Framing. So have a look. In this case, the characters are climbing outside the frame. Do you see that the pole goes up above the square where most of the picture is? See how the dialogue goes outside of the frame? Shows that things are starting to break out. They're in the zoo, so they're trying to break out. Yet, have a look, the animal is entirely within a dark black frame. The people are free, right? The animals are not. See how dark the frames are in here? And yet, as the people become more animal-like, they go into the frames, or the cages, as it were. And in the end, you have framing as if the people are the ones who are the animals. Interesting, hey? So let's have a look finally at two pictures of the way small children are actually being taught how to use these meaning systems. Here is an example of a little girl who is using offer and demand to try and understand picture books and to demonstrate how images work. Look, I wanted my photo to be a demand. They've got frames there and they're actually making offers and demands. In this one, a child is interpreting the image of a picture book from a picture book and recreating it, the angle, looking down. This meta-language, these words for describing images, are not just for you to use. You can teach your students as well. You'll be meeting the demands of the Australian curriculum and teaching your students really valuable, portable skills they can use in lots of different subjects. and to help analyse how images make meaning. It's really valuable. I've used this framework for teaching images in a variety of subjects across the curriculum in many year levels, and the kids love it, I can promise you. That's all for this presentation.